week is Sandra Burley, who has happily spent 20 years living and working across the globe. Her years of experience in marketing, advertising, and sales spurred the launch of her first business and plunge into entrepreneurship several years ago. Now she is immersed in the world of affiliate marketing as the global communications manager at one of the world's leading affiliate platforms. She's happily ensconced in the UK with her husband and two children, working a 4-day week and striving for balance as best she can. Welcome to the business of being brilliant, Sandra.
Thank you very much for having me.
Oh, it's such a joy to invite you on the show and to be chatting about your career and what it is to be a global communications manager and how you manage the whole career and parenting to young children juggle. And I'm really interested to hear about your experience of working an organizational 4-day work week as well, which is a hot topic. So looking forward to digging into all of that with you. A question I often ask my guests to warm up the conversation is, tell me something or tell us something that you enjoy doing when you're not at work in your downtime.
I love paddleboarding, so I don't get out and do it enough, but it is definitely my happy place, being on the water. Funny thing is, not actually necessarily when I'm paddling, just standing on a paddleboard on the water. I find it the most peaceful thing, and we're very lucky here in East Sussex and Kent to have a lot of places to do that.
Yeah, that's so great. So, and I paddleboarded for the first time ever this week
Did you? Did
on
you
the
like it?
river,
Did you
probably at a
love it?
spot that you know. I did. I was strangely nervous about standing up. Uh,
Everyone is. It's a
yeah,
strange sensation.
yeah, it feels quite unnatural to kind of just stand up on a board, even though I've done surfing before a long time ago. But this was
Wow.
a lot more peaceful, and there was a lot less falling off. So it was good.
And once you stand up and you gain your confidence and your balance, it's wonderful, isn't it?
Yeah.
And you sort of achieved something by standing up.
Absolutely. I felt like, whoa, look at me. I am actually doing this. And suddenly I found myself doing something I never knew I could do. So, or hadn't done
Well
before.
done.
It was
Very
good.
brave. Oh, it's
It was
wonderful.
good.
I'm glad you've been introduced to it.
Yeah, yeah. I'd definitely like to go back again. You get a lot less wet than kayaking, I've discovered, where you get a very
Oh,
soggy bottom. So,
unless you're very unlucky.
yeah,
You have quite a
exactly.
long way to fall.
Yeah. So, is your paddleboarding a recent thing? I mentioned in the intro that you've kind of lived and worked internationally, and love to hear a bit more about where you've lived and worked around the world. But have you paddleboarded in lots of different countries, or is it something more recent?
I've only paddleboarded in America and the UK. No, I took it up right after my son was born as a sort of something for me. And I really thought that I would do it more actually. As I said before, I just don't get out as much as I want to. But I've been doing it for just about 10 years. And I, I just, from the second I did it, from the first second, I fell in love with it. So on and off for the last 10 years, but just in the UK and the US.
Yeah, yeah, that's great. It's great that it's become something that helps you tune out and just
Mm.
enjoy living life in the moment and forgetting the things we have to keep on top of when we're on dry land.
Yeah,
So,
exactly. Exactly. Leave it all out in the water.
yeah, trail it all behind you.
That's the intention for sure.
Yeah, yeah. So tell us about your career path to date, because you've travelled and worked extensively in different sectors and in different modes of employment. I'd love to hear a little bit more about that.
Sure. Well, I've been extremely fortunate to have opportunities to live and work in different countries. I moved to London right after graduating from university in New York, and I started working at a marketing consultancy focusing on future forecasting. Then I moved to a creative ad agency in Calgary, Canada. I had really hoped to become a copywriter at an agency. Creative director of one of the huge agencies in New York was my ultimate career ambition when I was in university. What I found was that creative positions are hard to come by. So I started at the agency as an account manager on the contingency that when a creative role came up, I could apply for it. And luckily, after a few months, we won some big new business and there was capacity for a new copywriter. So I started in a junior copywriter position, really thrilled to be starting my path to my ultimate goal. And of course, goals change along the way, but we'll come to that. I then started writing a book, as many copywriters do. It was called Push Up Bras and Burning Bras Balancing Feminism and Femininity. And I tried to get it published, but I did not have as much success as you did, Helen. um, I was told by agents that I really needed to have more authority and credibility behind me to be an expert on the subject. A way to this was to go back into academics. So I decided to pursue a sociology master's in gender, sexuality, and society. The best place for this was the University of Amsterdam in the Netherlands. So I dove into that. And I lived in the Netherlands for 3 years. And during, during the course, my views on everything I thought I knew entirely changed, which was a little inconvenient considering that I'd written a whole book about it. However, I think that this is one of the best reasons for further study is just to allow yourself to be changed by new points of view. So after I graduated, I didn't want to publish the manuscript I'd written and decided to put it aside and potentially one day work off my master's thesis, which was about performing femininity. And this is actually a huge part of our societal discourse at the moment, which I'm thrilled to see. But I have not done anything pursuing that. However, it sort of shaped what I wanted to do next. I moved to Melbourne, Australia, to go back into advertising and joined a really dynamic ad agency, which was focusing on the female perspective. So I could bring everything I learned in my master's and put it back into my goal of being on the creative side of an agency, but with that focus. So I was really lucky to find that and lived there for a year. And I ended my time in Australia as a senior copywriter, that much closer to my big goal. However, at this time, my husband and I were thinking about starting a family, and my perception was that agency life wasn't as suited to family life as I wanted. So I decided to change direction again. Um, because we wanted to be close to my family as we started our own, we moved back to Washington, D.C., and I took a position as the director of sales and marketing for a large medical practice. I did that for a few years, about 4 years. And then I moved to be the director of sales and marketing for a regional magazine in DC. And in that time, we had our two beautiful children and decided to make one final move. As my husband is British, we decided we need to pick the US or the UK. And we ultimately decided to settle down in the UK before our oldest started reception. So I took a few years off and about 2 years off when we first moved here, which was really lucky to be able to do that, to spend with the kids. And then I decided what I wanted. My big goal at this point was ultimate flexibility. So I decided to start my own business, which was Self Care Sundays Box, a well-being and beauty box for women. The idea was devised when I had my son. And I think we're going to talk maybe a little bit about this later. But basically, as all new moms do, we feel we have no time for ourselves. And it was sort of a culmination of using all of my skills in advertising, marketing, sales, the female perspective and psychology, and being a mom myself, that I decided to launch that. I did that for a few years, had the ups and downs of being an entrepreneur, and then decided to go back to working for a company where I wasn't ultimately responsible for every single task and wearing every hat, and join a company, an affiliate marketing agency, as our global communications manager, which brings us to today.
Wow, such an interesting story. And gosh, so many accomplishments in there as well.
Thank
Your
you.
book, we know just how hard it is to crank out an entire book. And you were saying that one day you want to come back and update it and, get it published. So another guest in the current series is about to be celebrating the launch, Dr. Lucy Ryan, of her, I think it's her second or third book, but it was 9 years in the making and it arose out of her master's thesis. So
Oh,
you never
really?
know, kind of, I don't know if we're 9 years from your thesis or a bit way to go, but it may
Oh,
well
we're
still.
much further past that.
Oh, okay. Well, if there's
About
no there's
17.
no there's no time constraints. One day you might be, celebrating your launch. So
Oh, that's
yeah,
lovely to hear. I'll be interested
yeah.
to hear that podcast.
Yeah, definitely. You'll probably have lots in common, and really interesting to hear how your interest in femininity and kind of gender sociology has, you know, helped influence your career moves as you've looked or taken on roles that allows you to use that knowledge and apply it in your work. And really interesting to hear how you had such a clear goal at the beginning. I want to be a creative editor, and that's my career plan, and that's what I'm working towards. And then, life happens, and our circumstances evolve. And then you said, actually, when you're starting a family, you ask yourself the question: is that still the thing that is more important above all else, or are other things more important for you? It was actually a more flexible role with more control over how you and when you worked.
Exactly. And actually, I'm really glad that I allowed myself to let go of what I thought my big goals were, and not just have a tunnel vision towards that, but evolve as a person. Um, and I feel that I've been lucky with my opportunities, but I'm also very glad. I'm pretty sure that at my university graduation, the big graduation speech, um, I don't remember actually who the speaker was, but I remember them saying something about just allow yourself to change and grow, and I've kind of carried that with me, and and have done so, and I think that that's been nice to be in the position I am today, to just be flexible.
Yeah, and it makes you more open to those unexpected avenues that open up that you might never have envisaged at the outset.
Exactly.
Every job you have builds new connections, that might open doors later on and things. So,
Yes,
yeah,
and new perspectives that take you in a different direction.
yeah, exactly. And you mentioned that you really enjoyed the entrepreneurial side of setting up and running Beauty Box Sunday, but you also, when you went back into your current affiliate role, um, enjoyed the fact you could let go of some of the responsibilities of running your own business. What other reflections did you have on working for yourself versus working for others? Because I imagine a lot of people listening to this might be in an employed role, in employment, but wondering, oh, do I make the move at some point, or might have indeed have kind of gone from self-employed to into an employed role. So really interested to hear your perspective on that.
So I wasn't entirely under the illusion that owning your own business was all rosy. Both my parents owned their own medical practices, and I really saw how everything fell on them, and the entire responsibility of employing people and making all of the decisions. It's a 24-hour a day job. You're never able to detach from it. So I didn't go into it thinking this will be amazing and I'll you know be entirely flexible and have the best possible job in the entire world. I knew that there were huge sacrifices with owning your own business, but with two young children, I thought this, despite knowing that, this is really what I want. Interestingly, even knowing all of that, it was more full on than I could have anticipated. I thought I was going into it with eyes wide open, and I suppose I didn't realize how much I like collaborating with people. So working so much in isolation actually really dampened my creativity. Um, of course, I knew that I my strengths weren't in every area, and it was really highlighted owning my own business. The areas that would be nice to have other opinions and help on, and just somebody else's expertise. I mean, I'm certainly not an expert in many areas, so it did highlight those areas to me. Um, and it was really the lack of collaboration with people that I found most difficult. I did hire a few freelancers during that time, but it's not the same as somebody maybe having a stake in the business and caring about it as much as you. And I suppose what I really missed was somebody caring as deeply as I did about the long term success of the business. So I loved it. I learned an awful lot. I mean, it was like another education owning my own
Mm.
business. And I really liked what my goal was. My goal was to create a way for women to be able to relax and step back and set aside time for themselves in a guilt-free way. So that was the underlying goal, was in a guilt-free way. Um, the reason I started it was when I had my son, I'd have sort of 30-minute pockets here and there where my husband or, a well-intentioned family member would say, go take 30 minutes for yourself, go relax. And I would be absolutely paralyzed with indecision. What shall I do? Shall I sleep? Shall I shower? Shall I read? Shall I watch some rubbish TV to relax?
Yeah.
And, I'd waste my 30 minutes basically trying to decide what make me relax the most. What I really wanted was somebody to just hand me a box and say, take this, go into the bathroom, do all of these lovely things that are laid out for you, and you don't have to think about it. It will take you exactly 30 minutes, and this will be guilt free, and this is your time. And I actually subscribe to a lot of other subscription boxes to try to get this feeling. And I couldn't find one. So the idea was born to start my own. And I still love my idea. I'm still actually running it on the side, but I'm in the process of selling it.
Yeah.
And I really liked what I was trying to do, but ultimately, running my own business stopped being the right thing for me in this at this stage of life.
Yes, that's so interesting to hear. And I love the way you describe that, paralyzed by indecision when someone gives you half an hour of free time and you have all these competing priorities, and it becomes
Mhm.
really hard to just, yeah, what's the best way of spending that half hour? And it's so tempting to dive in and say, okay, I'll catch up on this job or I'll catch up on that. And then you get to the end of and yet another day and realize you haven't really, you know, had some downtime and stocked up your own well-being a bit. So I love the idea that you just wanted someone to give you a box with
A
instructions which
literal
had,
box.
yeah, here's how to unwind successfully in it. That's such a
Exactly.
great idea. Yeah.
Oh,
And
thank you.
yeah, I'm feeling I need to order one of your boxes for sure. I've needed them in my life this last few years.
They are
But
legit.
I totally agree with what you're saying as well about just how much you learn by setting up your own business. I mean, I'd spent kind of 15, 17 years in the corporate world and had huge opportunities to learn and grow and acquire different skills, and then moved into more entrepreneurial roles, and now obviously running my own business. And I learned so many different things through that than I ever learned in a corporate role. So they're very complementary in some ways. So they could be very satisfying, but like you say, they bring lots of, pros that you might not get in a corporate role, but also some disadvantages in that you have to do stuff that you don't particularly enjoy or feel good at. And like you say,
Complete.
actually the collaboration you might have to set up, it might be a challenge to find ways to set up enjoyable collaborations.
And I do love paid holiday time working for somebody else.
Yeah, there's that huge bonus. Exactly.
Huge bonus.
Yeah, exactly. So now you're working as a global communications manager at a leading affiliate marketing. Tell us a bit about what you do in that job. Is it internal communications? Is it external communications? And we'll get also, I'd love to hear a little bit more about how the whole 4-day week thing works.
Yeah. So my job is to it's to manage both internal and external communications. And really, the summary of what I do is to make sure that we're sending the right message to the right people at the right time via the right channel. So that goes for internal and external. And of course, uh, you know, I would say probably the biggest complaint in most companies with internal communication is overwhelm, right? You're getting so much information and messaging that everyone, every department thinks is relevant to you and wants you to hear. And it's figuring out how to curate and disseminate that information in a way that's manageable and absorbable while doing the rest of your job. So that's what I spend quite a lot of my time doing. And externally, the same thing. How do we cut through the clutter of all the other external messaging that everyone is receiving? Give people just the relevant information in the most engaging way. And I really like that. I really like thinking about how what are the pain points internally and externally that people have with communications and how do we go around those?
Yeah, that's fascinating because you hear all the time. I certainly do from professionals about how their inboxes are overloaded, how they have so many multiple channels of communication. They have messaging apps, they have portals, intranets, they have kind of collaboration apps, etc. So I can totally see how actually that such a big part of your job is about that cutting through the noise successfully. Do you find that you have to shut a lot of other communications down because there's too much of it going on, and you have to reduce the number of channels and get quite fierce
Hugely.
about it?
Yeah, yes and no. So yes, and I'm currently working on a big long-term strategy of how to streamline, and what sort of um, new structure we can have to make it as effective as possible. However, in doing this job, which I've only been doing for 6 months, um, my changing has my thinking has changed on it a bit. And part of what I want to reframe is not only the structure, but also the mindset that all of the employees across the company have, which is that in this modern workplace that we have, and we have all of this tech and all of these different channels for communication, actually a huge part of everybody's role and responsibility is to absorb the information that is given. So, a lot of people complain this meeting could have been an email. We have too many Zoom meetings and online meetings. There's too much information. That is actually a part of everybody's job now. And I think our mindset hasn't shifted enough that our job isn't just to do the tasks and the work that is assigned to us, but to be responsible for getting the information that you're given, taking time out of your day every day to read it, and attend meetings. That is a huge part of everyone's job now. And it didn't used to be. It's a complete shift in our mindset that needs to happen. So that's another message that I'd ultimately like to give to all of our staff is this is actually a part of the job. And while we curate it as best we can, it almost needs to be in everybody's job description.
Yeah, that's a really interesting reflection on how we need to look differently at communications, and it's not just, well, stop sending me stuff or stop inviting me to stuff. It's actually a responsibility, as you say, not just to absorb the information I've given, but I guess for me as an individual employee is to curate as well and find my structure and systems for managing that constant flow of information, as opposed to just
Exactly.
leaving it to someone else to worry about and then complaining when it's too much.
Exactly. I think everyone needs to take a bit more ownership of this part of their role in every single role now in the modern world. And it's just changed in the last 50 years.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a challenge that we have to find a better way of responding to. And it's a challenge that just didn't exist in this nature, 15, 20
Exactly.
years ago. I still remember seeing my first ever work email in my first ever job and going, oh, wow, what's that? And now, inboxes are flooded and all that.
I know. I mean, there's a whole generation, that they used to have emails printed out for them and, write a response and then somebody would
Yeah.
email back. And obviously times have shifted. So a lot of things need to shift.
Yeah, absolutely. And it sounds like the organization you're working for is very forward thinking. An example of which is their adoption of the 4-day working week, whereby everybody in the organization works a 4-day week. Is that right from the top down?
Right from the top down. It's fantastic. So it's everybody is it's called Flexi Week, and it's everybody is remote. Everybody has a 4-day week. We do have offices in 15 different countries, and people do go into them because, of course, people like to collaborate and see each other in person. But everybody has the option of working from home, which is really lovely. So, people come into the office, they work from home, they do a mix, they do either or. And you get to choose your day off. So everyone can choose their own day off. You just need to be consistent about it. Um, and we cover each other when we're not there, and we pick up each other's work, and we all keep connected. But when you are off, you are off. You are not bothered on your flexi day off, which is really lovely. And I think the intention behind it was to allow everybody to do all of the life things. So not just, wellness, relax, but doctor's appointments and life admin that often has to be done during the 9 to 5 workday. And that's just where it fits in at the moment. You can't go to the GP on a Sunday. So without taking extra time off. And it's a really nice balance for everyone. I think it's working beautifully, and it's really working for me. I cannot imagine ever going back to 5 days a week, I have to say. This day a week off means so much to me.
Yeah, and it sounds like because everyone else is doing it, and because there's that golden rule that you don't bother someone on their day off, then you don't fall into the trap that I certainly experienced early in my career when I went from 5 days to 4 days, which is you're kind of the only one not in, and there's that pressure to keep checking emails or be available for calls or to switch your non-working day regularly. It doesn't really work. It's like, the weekend we unwind so much better than a day off during the week because everyone else is stopping too, or big annual festivals.
Yes, actually, I have to say, and I have had jobs before where, some people and I did it for a bit, took a day off a week. But if you're the odd one out, you have such a sense of guilt, don't you?
Yeah.
And you just you feel different than the rest of your team, and this just makes it really equal across the board. And everyone's a lot better for it. I think it's a great thing. I think the UK pilot that happened with the 4 day work week,
Mm.
I hope that expands even further because I think this is the right direction for work to go.
Yeah.
If everyone could deliver on their, service level agreements, then it works.
Yes. And it sounds like it encourages more conversations about substitutability. So if, something crops up on the day you're not in, what colleague can cover for you, etc. And which I
Exactly.
think is really key to making that work. And it gives the business more flexibility of resource as well to cope with, unexpected demands or changing demands of work.
It it also makes everybody more organized. I mean, you're having a day off. Your colleague is having a day off here. If you need to collaborate on something, if you need them to make a decision, you have to be ultra organized and get that together before everyone goes off on their separate day. So just what it does is it makes people think a little bit harder about being organized, and I think that's a great thing.
Yes, yes, that is a fantastic thing because it's easy to pay less attention to that when you're very busy, and just
Yeah,
keep running. And I'm curious
absolutely.
to know, how do you deal with the risk of everybody wanting the same day off, like a Friday? How do you make sure that it's spread across the working week, I guess, or the business days of operating?
Well, you'd think that everyone would want a Friday off, but you'd be surprised at how distributed it is. So I would say 50% have the day off on Friday, which is quite a lot. But then 50% not on a Friday. I don't take a Friday off. And it's because I love working on a Friday because so many other people aren't, that it's a quiet day with I never have a meeting on a Friday.
Mm.
I get to work uninterrupted. And for me, that is a huge treat because I have a day off during the week when it's really busy. And then a Friday is very quiet. And so actually it's a peaceful week for me. And I think 50% of the other people agree. And it works very well for some people to take other days off for childcare purposes or other reasons. So surprisingly, it's worked. I suppose if everyone had wanted a Friday off, the organization might have had to adjust, but that just it doesn't seem to be the case.
Yeah, that's great to hear. It works so well, and I know what you mean about it's nice to have a working day that has a different rhythm.
Hmm.
So they're not all the same, and often, a day with fewer meetings obviously helps you do some more deep thinking or some longer term thinking, which might feel harder to do when you've got on other days when there are more calls in the diary. It's
Exactly. I love the rhythm of it.
Yeah, it's so interesting to hear how it's working and how it seems to be working very successfully for the organization as a whole. It's been so interesting just hearing about your career and what you do. And if people listening think, oh, love to connect with Sandra professionally, what would be the best way for them to do that?
So probably via my LinkedIn profile, which is Sandra Burley, or they can email me at sandra.burley@gmail.com.
Brilliant. Thank you. And I'll pop those links in the show notes as well. And I've really enjoyed hearing about your very varied career, but also that kind of thread of all the way through of just following, what you're really passionate about and interested in and how you've woven together, both, technical skills that are important to you, but also, societal factors and elements and family as well, and how you've brought that all together. Really, best of luck with your enjoying the role that you're in now, but also maybe one day updating that book and bringing it out to the shelves, and and paddleboarding on your days off. Thank you so much for being a brilliant guest.
Thank you so much. I've really enjoyed this.